College Algebra, Section 2.3. We're going to review some information about lines. So first of all, let's talk about slope. Slope describes how steep a line is and what direction it slants. So we can have positively sloped lines and negatively sloped lines. So here we've got when you're going up the hill here, from left to right, because, okay, back up a second. We're always going to read a graph from left to right, just like you would read a book or just like you would read this phrase up here. So as going left to right, you would be going up the hill. So this one has a positive slope, and this one that's going downhill as you go left to right would have a negative slope. The equations of these lines in slope-intercept form would be y equals mx plus b for both of them. On the negatively sloped line, that slope is going to be a negative number. And on a positively sloped line, that m is going to be a positive number. Then we have two other special types of numbers that I want to talk, or special types of lines that I want to talk about here. This one is a horizontal line. And horizontal lines have a slope of 0. And their equations look like y equals a number. Whatever number they have as a y-intercept, that's the equation of a horizontal line. Then this guy is a vertical line. Vertical lines have a slope that is undefined. And their equations are x equals some number. X is going to be whatever the x-intercept is for this vertical line. How do we find slope? We find slope by doing rise over run. I mean, you could probably, like most people can tell me rise over run. Sometimes people can tell me the formula. But a lot of times when we go to figure out slope, we, for some reason, get it upside down. So I always just remember rise rhymes with y's. So I'm going to say subtract my y's. And then you always want to run from your x's. I mean, you don't always want to, but sometimes people want to run from their x's. So rise rhymes with y's over run from your x's. So rise over run. Subtract your y's over subtract your x's. Slope can be used to describe how steep a roof is or how steep a road grade is. I don't know if you've ever driven down mountains, but they'll say like to go slow when you're going down the mountain, and it'll tell you the grade of the road as a percent. So if it's got like 20% would be kind of steep. But if you have a 20% road grade, then your slope would be 20 over 100 because that word percent means divide by 100. And so your slope would actually be 1/5. So a rise of 1, run of 5. Roofs, the pitch is given like a 925. So that would mean that there's a slope of 9/25, a rise of 9 for every run of 25. Okay, equations of lines. There are a few types of forms of equations of lines that we want to be familiar with. The first one is slope-intercept form, and we kind of already mentioned that. When you're working with slope-intercept form, that is y equals mx plus b. You're going to have two variables usually in your formula, in your equation. Y and x are going to be formulas. M and b are going to be numbers. The m number is the slope, and the b is the y-intercept. And remember that when you tell me y-intercepts or x-intercepts, we go 0, comma, that number. So that needs to be an ordered pair. Then in the slope-intercept form, we have our two special lines, horizontal and vertical lines. For slope-intercept form for horizontal line is y equals whatever number is the y-intercept. And for a vertical line is x equals whatever number is the x-intercept. Then we have a point slope form. Point slope form is going to be y minus some y number equals m, which is the slope, times x minus some x number. So again, you're going to have two variables left in your equation. You're going to have a y and an x. Everything else will be a number. The m is still the slope, but then the x and y numbers make a point on the line. So any point on the line, x number, comma, y number, we can use for point slope form. When MyMathLab asks you for point slope form, you're going to leave it just like that. You're not going to rearrange it into slope-intercept form. So make sure you pay attention to what the little blue words tell you in how to give the answer to these problems. Okay, then we have general form. General form looks like this. So A is a number, B is a number, C is a number. X and Y are still variables. In general form, there can be no fractions. So if you have fractions, you're going to need to clear those fractions so that you have all integers. Except for this leading one. This A out front has to be a whole number. So this A out in front of the X must be positive. No fractions in general form, and the leading term in front of the x has to be positive. Okay, so let's look at some problems. We're going to find the equation of the line through the ordered pair -2, 4 that has a slope of -1. So we'll start with point slope form. Point slope form is y minus the y number, so that's 4, equals m, -1, times x minus the x number, which is -2. Now, when we have subtract a negative, remember that makes add a positive. So that's going to be y minus 4 equals -1 times x plus 2. And that's point slope form. That's all you have to do. For slope-intercept form, we're going to need to rearrange that. So I'll go ahead and distribute this -1 so that I have y minus 4 equals -x minus 2, and then add that 4 over, and that is going to be point slope form. So we will have y equals -x plus 2. That's slope-intercept form. Point slope form was y minus 4 equals -1 times x plus 2. Then we got slope-intercept form here, and then general form. General form, we can have no fractions, which we don't, so that's cool. But we have to have all of our variables on one side. So I'm going to go ahead and move this x over to the left. And that is going to give us x plus y equals 2. Got to make sure that your leading term is positive, and that's that. Okay, let's take it a little further and find the equation of the line through two ordered pairs. So find the equation of the line through two given points if we wanted general instructions. So in this case, we are going to first find the slope and then use point slope form. Remember, point slope was y minus y number equals m times x minus x number. And when we do that, we're just going to choose one of the points. It doesn't matter which one you choose. Whichever one feels easiest for you is the way that I usually go. So the first thing we want to do is find the slope. And remember, the slope formula was rise over run. So we're going to subtract y's because that rhymes with rise, over subtract x's because that's the run. It does not matter which order I do my subtracting. So here's what I mean by that. If I take -1 minus 4 for my x's, which will be in the denominator, I have to also do -2 minus 3. So that would give me -5 over -5, which is a slope of 1. But I could also go the other direction. I could do 4 minus -1 and 3 minus -2, which would give me 5 over 5, which is 1. So when you're working with slope, you can either subtract right to left, as long as you subtract right to left in the denominator, or you can subtract left to right, as long as you go left to right in the denominator. And I know I said that backwards. It's like 6:25 in the morning. So you can do y2 and y1 minus y1 or y1 minus y2. It doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. You just can't switch direction midway. So our slope is going to be 1. Then we're going to choose one of our points to use point slope form. I'll usually choose the one that has the positive numbers, but sometimes you don't have any options. At any rate, we're going to do y minus our y number. So y minus 3 equals our slope times x minus our x number, which was 4. And then point slope form would just be that. Y minus 3 equals 1 times x minus 4. Now, if you chose the other point, it would look like y plus 2, because I have to subtract that, equals 1 times x plus 1, because I had to subtract that. Either way, like we're literally going to end up with the same thing no matter what we do, no matter which one we pick. So let's go ahead and change that actually into slope-intercept form. Remember to do that, we would distribute our slope. So that would give me y minus 3 equals x minus 4. Add that 3 over to the other side. We get y equals x minus 1. What if I had done this one? I would have y plus 2 equals x plus 1. Subtract that 2 over, y equals x minus 1. So see, we get the same thing, whichever one we pick. Now to put this in general form, we would need to move that x and y to the same side. So if I subtract the x over, I'll have negative x plus y equals -1. But then remember, I can't have that negative out in front, so I would need to multiply everything by -1. So I'd have x minus y equals 1. So there's general form. Then point slope form would be one of these two, and y-intercept or slope-intercept form would be one of the others. If instead of moving my x over to this side, what if I move my y over to this side and my 1 over to that side? Then I would have x minus y equals 1. So whatever you do, remember that your general form, you have to lead off with a positive in front of the x. Okay, let's look at these two equations, or these two problems that look like they're going to be a lot of work, but they're actually easy. This says, what is the equation for a line with an undefined slope that passes through -1, 4? So undefined slope is one of our special lines. It's either vertical or horizontal. And if you think about slope as being rise over run for our slope, on a vertical line, we are going to, from one point to the next, rise some amount, but we don't go left and right. So on a vertical line, our rise is a number, our run is 0. On a horizontal line, we're going left and right, but not up and down. So on a horizontal line, our rise is 0 and our run is some number. We just have to remember which one is okay to do. If I do rise over run here, I'm going to have a number divided by 0. If I do rise over run here, I'm going to have 0 divided by a number. Well, if I do 0 divided by a number, that is okay. It equals 0. If I do a number divided by 0, that is NO, which is undefined. So this one that's rising a number and running 0 is no, undefined. So that one's our vertical. So undefined slope is going to be a vertical line. Vertical lines have equations that go x equals a number. And over here we have an x and a y. So if we had to say x equaled some number, what number would it equal if it had to go through the ordered pair negative 1, 4? Well, x would equal negative 1. So we just had to think some about that problem. We didn't have to do much work for it. So let's look at this one. What is the equation for a line through negative 1, 4 that is parallel to the x-axis? The x-axis is this one. In order to be parallel to the x-axis, it would have to be a horizontal line. To be parallel to the x-axis, it would need to be a horizontal line. And we just talked about horizontal lines. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0, and they have an equation of a line that is y equals a number. So y equals some number. If it's going through negative 1, 4, it would be y equals 4. Speaking of parallel and perpendicular, parallel lines are lines that have the same slope. So parallel lines, we use the symbol that looks like two little parallel lines. Perpendicular lines, we usually use this symbol. They intersect at a right angle. And if you notice here, I'm going to turn my paper a little bit. If you notice, these two perpendicular lines, this line has a positive slope. Turn it a little more. This line has a positive slope that's pretty steep. This line has a negative slope that's less steep. So remember that the higher the value for slope is, the more steep the line is. And the lower the value of the slope, or closer to 0, the less steep it is. So if I have a slope here of, say, 2 over 1, that would be a steep slope, steepish. This one would be less steep, and it has a slope of negative 1/2. So your perpendicular lines have two things that are different about their slopes. One is that they are opposite signs. The other is that they are upside down from each other. So they have opposite and reciprocal slopes. So remember, opposite, you have to change the sign to get to the opposite, and reciprocal, you have to flip the number. Flip the fraction, change the sign for perpendicular lines. So let's look at an example of using those concepts. We want to find the equation for a line that is either parallel or perpendicular to the given line. So these are our general instructions, and then I'm going to write the steps over here, and we will work a problem over to the side. So the first thing we need to do when we are asked to find an equation for a line that is parallel or perpendicular to a given line is we want to find the slope of the given line. So that's step 1. So we are given 4x minus 8y equals 1. The easiest way to find the slope of this line is going to be just to put it in slope-intercept form. So I will subtract that 4x over. I get negative 8y equals negative 4x plus 1. And then divide each term by negative 8. So that's going to leave me with y equals negative 4 over negative 8 would be 1/2 x, and then minus 1/8. So my y-intercept is 0, negative 1/8. Here is the slope of the given line. So this is the slope they gave me. Once I know that slope, then I have to pay attention to whether they want me to find parallel or perpendicular. So if they want you to find a parallel line, then we are going to use the slope you just found. So if we were looking for a parallel line, I would use a slope of 1/2. If I'm looking for a perpendicular line, I am going to need to flip and change the sign. So take the given slope, and we are going to flip the number and change the sign because we need the opposite reciprocal. So in this problem, they want us to use a perpendicular slope. So my given slope is 1/2. So the slope I'm going to use is going to be flip it over, change the sign. So use the slope of negative 2. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I am going to use point slope form. And I'm using the point they give me and the slope I just found. So use point slope form with the slope from step 2 and the given point. So they gave me 8, negative 7. I'm using a slope of negative 2. And remember, point slope form, y minus y number equals m times x minus x number. So here I will go y minus negative 7 equals m of negative 2 times x minus 8. So if they're wanting me to leave that in point slope form, it would be y plus 7 equals negative 2 times x minus 8. If they want me to put that in slope-intercept form, then I would need to distribute my negative 2 and get y plus 7 equals negative 2x plus 16. Subtract 7 over, so y equals negative 2x plus 9. If they wanted that in general form, I would need to add my 2x back to this side, and I would be at 2x plus y equals 9. So know what they're asking you, what kind they're asking you to give, and be careful and follow your formulas.